Okay, so next we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about another way to mitigate this problem with numerical instability without having to resort to using any model-free RL algorithms, and that's to use simpler policy classes. So first I'm going to talk about how we can do efficient model-based RL with very simple policy classes, namely time-varying linear controllers like the kind that we covered in the LQR lecture, and then I'll discuss how to use those simple policy classes to obtain more complex global policies represented by neural nets. So we're going to focus on the second part, use simpler policies than neural nets, and first I'll cover how we can do LQR with learned models. So this is a method called LQR-FLM, where FLM stands for fitted local models. I'll talk about how we can train local policies to solve simple tasks that are simple enough that they can be solved with a time-varying linear controller. And then I'll discuss how we can actually use this as a subroutine for learning more complex policies. Okay, so let's talk about local models. What's a local model? Well, a local model is a model that is valid in the neighborhood of a trajectory. So before, when we talked about LQR, we talked about how if you know the dynamics F, then you could use gradient-based methods, namely the second-order LQR method, to obtain a locally optimal policy represented by a time-varying linear controller. And the quantity that you don't know, if you don't know the model, is the derivatives, the df dx and the df du. That's what LQR needs, and that's what you don't have if you don't know the model. So how about this? What if we just fit df dx and df du around a current trajectory or policy? So what I mean concretely is you could take some initial time-varying linear policy, and as long as your system is stable enough, you could roll out multiple trajectories. Hopefully those trajectories are close enough together, and then you could empirically fit df dx and df du to the data. Essentially, at every time step, you could just estimate the derivative by fitting a linear function to your data. So you could make a linear fit to your dynamics. This linear fit is a matrix that represents the transition dynamics, so that if you take x and u, multiply them by this matrix, you should get something closer to x prime, to the next x. And then you could use that matrix to pull out your estimates of df dx and df du. And then you get a linearization at every time step. And it would be a different linearization at every time step. So if you can compute these linearizations and then use LQR, LQR would give you a linear feedback controller, and you can execute that controller directly in the real world to collect data. So the recipe for this procedure would be something like this. You have your current controller that you obtained from LQR, so you somehow use the LQR big K and little k matrix to construct a controller or local policy, P of u given x. And I've switched to u and x because that's what I used in the LQR lecture. You roll out some trajectories and then use those trajectories to fit these local time-varying linear dynamics. So your dynamics would be represented maybe by a Gaussian, where the mean is a linear function, so you need to fit the matrices A and B, and then treat those A's and B's as approximations to the derivatives df dx and df du. Then you would improve your controller by using essentially LQR, and then repeat the process. So this would be the recipe for LQR-FLM, or LQR with fitted linear models. It's a very reasonable recipe to take if you expect to start in a very narrow range of initial states, and you have continuous states and actions, and you'd expect your system to be not too crazy so that all those trajectories don't just go into all different places. Now, one question you have to ask is what controller should you execute? And that's very similar to the exploration problem in some sense. So iterative LQR produces x hat, u hat, k, and little k. And it prescribes the control law, u is equal to big K times x minus x hat plus little k plus u hat. So a very simple choice could be, well, let's just take the best action you got, which is u hat. So then your P of u given x, actually deterministic, is just a delta function centered at u hat. This is a bit problematic because it doesn't correct for deviations or drift. Your model is almost certainly not quite correct, which means that as you run this controller, you'll make little mistakes and you'll go off course, and this won't correct them. So this is an open loop controller, of course. So a much better choice is to take the action prescribed by the LQR control law, big K times x minus x hat plus little k plus u hat. Now, this version is better, but the problem I might have is that it might be a little too good. So maybe if your system is close to deterministic, when you run this controller, let's say you collect n different trajectories, maybe 5 trajectories, you'll probably actually get 5 copies of the same trajectory. And if you're going to be fitting your dynamics with linear regression, if you're basically making a linear fit at every time step, then the problem you might run into is that your linear regression process might be ill-conditioned. Because if your data is all the same, you can't fit a line to it if you don't see how it varies with respect to the input. So a better choice would be to actually inject a little bit of noise into the system. The idea is very similar to epsilon greedy. In continuous spaces, a very convenient distribution to use is a Gaussian distribution, where the mean is given by the output of your LQR controller, and the covariance, well, there's a choice to be made here. You could select the covariance heuristically, just basically inject a little bit of noise. But it turns out that a very good choice for the covariance is to set it to the inverse of the Q function matrix with respect to U. Intuitively, the QUU portion of the matrix represents the curvature of the reward to go with respect to the actions. When this curvature is very low, it means that the Q values, the total reward you get, doesn't depend very strongly on the actions, which means that lots of different actions might lead to pretty good rewards. So then you would want a high covariance. So if curvature is high, QUU is large, QUU inverse, QUU is small, QUU inverse will be large, so your covariance will be large and you'll be more random. If the curvature is very high, then you want the opposite. Then you want your action distribution to be close to deterministic. So in that case, you would avoid potentially taking really bad actions. So this way of automatically choosing your covariance tends to work very well, and mathematically it turns out to be equivalent to Boltzmann exploration, where you take actions with probability proportional to their exponentiated Q values. So that's quite nice. Okay, so to recap this process, run your controller to collect a sample of trajectories, fit your dynamics to those sample trajectories, use those samples to improve your controller, and then repeat. How do you fit the dynamics? Well, you get this data set consisting of xt, ut, and xt plus 1 for every time step, and you rolled out multiple trajectories, so you hopefully have multiple trajectories in this data set. So then you would fit p of xt plus 1 given xt ut at each time step using linear regression. And that gives you an estimate of p of xt plus 1 given xt ut, given by at times xt plus bt times ut, plus some constant ct, and then a noise nt. Now, if you want this to be more efficient, one fun trick you could use is you could impose a prior on this linear regression and get Bayesian linear regression. That turns out to be a really great way to incorporate some global modeling into this. So if you train, let's say, an imperfect neural network global model, you could use it as a prior to train these linear local models, and that can also work quite well. And then you would just use AT as the estimate of df dx in ILQR and BT as the estimate of df du. Okay, now there's still a little bit of a problem. When you estimate your dynamics using these linear functions, that estimate is only good locally. It's only good in the vicinity of the trajectories that you actually generated. The true dynamics are nonlinear. So far away from your data, there might be a big discrepancy between this linear fit and the true nonlinear dynamics. So if your optimized trajectory wanders into one of these high error regions, then when you actually roll it out in the real world, you might get an outcome very different from what you expected, because your controller is not going to correctly control the system at one of these erroneous regions because it was optimized for a different set of dynamics. And when that happens, even though you think you should be getting a better trajectory, you might actually get a worse trajectory than you had before, and your algorithm might diverge. So what you need to do is you need to somehow constrain how much you change the controller. How can we do this? Take a minute to think about how we could constrain the controller in this setting. We've seen this problem before. This problem is basically the same as the issue that we covered in the advanced policy gradients lecture, and the solution we can employ is also very similar. In the policy gradients lecture, we saw that when we have distributional shift in the state distribution, we can correct for it by constraining the action distribution. And that's what we can do with this procedure also. So we have our controller P of u given x that results in a trajectory distribution, and we can keep the new P of tau close to the old P hat of tau by imposing some kind of KL divergence constraint. And if the trajectory distributions are close, then we would expect the dynamics along those trajectories to also be close. So we would impose a constraint of the form dKl P tau versus P bar tau is less than or equal to some epsilon. And it turns out that this is actually very easy to do if P hat tau also came from a linear controller. So for policy gradients, we had to do a little bit of complex work to impose the constraint, but intuitively, if you think back to the policy gradients lecture, the way that we imposed that constraint ultimately was by using a linear quadratic approximation. We made a linear approximation to the objective and a quadratic approximation to the constraint. Now, it turns out that if we do the same exact thing in this LQR-FLM setting, we can actually see that that linear quadratic approximation becomes exact. It's not an approximation anymore. So if you actually write out the KL divergence between these Gaussians, you'll get some terms that are linear and some terms that are quadratic, which means that LQR can actually incorporate that constraint. And it turns out that the way that method works is you just modify the cost function for LQR to have additional terms for matching the previous policy. I'm not going to go into detail about how this works. If you want to learn more about it, check out this paper called Learning Neural Network Policies with Guided Policy Search Under Unknown Dynamics. But the high-level idea is that we impose a KL divergence constraint very much like in the Advanced Policy Gradients lecture, and that KL divergence constraint can actually be imposed exactly if the dynamics of policy are linear. All right, so far we covered how we can learn linear policies by iteratively estimating linear dynamics, and these are time-varying linear dynamics and time-varying linear policies. This procedure by itself can actually learn some pretty interesting behaviors. So this is a real-world robot. You can kind of guess what it's trying to do, and it's just using this LQR-FLM procedure. So there's no deep learning here. And every time it makes 5 of these trials, it uses those 5 trials to refit its local dynamics, update its policy with LQR using this KL divergence constraint, and repeat. And you can see that it's gradually getting better and better at stacking this Lego block. However, in reality, we probably want to do deep reinforcement learning to get global policies that could stack this Lego block from any position, maybe even using vision. So to learn about how we could do that, in the next section I'm going to discuss how we can take many local policies and turn them into global policies that can now be represented by flexible function approximators like neural networks.